By thinking we arrive at understanding. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. There are many places in the Gospels where we see Jesus in open conflict with the Pharisees, that is to say, with man-made as opposed to true, mystical tradition. In the Gospels of Saint Matthew, chapter 15, we see a good example of how they and he locked horns. Then some of the scribes and Pharisees from Jerusalem came and asked Jesus, "Why do your disciples break our ancient tradition and eat their food without washing their hands properly first?" Jesus, after scolding them for their hypocrisy in observing lesser rules so carefully while ignoring too much more important ones, he said, "Listen and understand this thoroughly. It is not what goes into a man's mouth that makes him common or unclean. It is what comes out of a man's mouth that makes him unclean." It wasn't that Jesus counseled against such wholesome practices as washing one's hands before eating. In an age, however, when lesser rules were given too much importance relative to the truly important observances, cleansing the heart of impure desires, for example, he emphasized the supreme importance of loving God and of communing with Him. The Pharisees, the Orthodox religionists of his day, in other words, had brought true religion down to a level of intellectual hair-splitting. They mistakenly consider the way to understand and to lie through a minefield of definitions, which they try to refine to ultimate exactitude. Jesus taught, however, that the intellect alone can never lead one to truth. Without love, indeed, there is no ultimate verity. Without fixity of purpose, born of the heart's devotion, the intellect wanders endlessly. It cannot settle for long on anything. As the Bhagavad Gita says in the second chapter, the intellects of those who lack fixity of spiritual purpose are inconstant, their interests endlessly ramified. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. For those who are watching us in streaming, this weekend is dedicated to the Italian Ananda's spiritual family. So now we are all together. It's a very special thing to do this with Medhavati, that is the spiritual director of our center in Rome, where I spent a lot of time at the beginning of my seeking. I was working in Rome, I had a family in Rome, but if I think about the most important thing in those years was that in Rome, very big city, there were a place in which I could go and seclude myself, finding an environment, a good environment, gurubais with the right vibration, and with them practicing Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga is guiding us on the opposite direction, despite of Maya. Today it's my father's birthday, and I didn't know it. I have to say first that when I was a child, it was a great inspiration for me, spiritual inspiration. But then I turned into a naughty teenager. Probably I was 16, and my rhythm at school was quite interesting. Actually, the school started at 8:30, so my alarm clock was at 8. The second alarm were my parents screaming, "Wake up, wake up." Wake up. And I was used to jump out of the bed at the very last second. I could have a very fast shower. I didn't dry my hair at that time, so I taken my bike and I cycled towards school with my hair completely wet, and I never had a problem. But when I moved into Italy, people said, "You are crazy to go out with your wet hair." So I skipped the breakfast, just a cup of tea, and so I arrived at the very last second. And my father, at that moment, was very stressed because of his job. He was very nervous, but because I was a teenager, I could see only about myself. There were no people but me. So I couldn't recognize or achieve the acknowledgement of how my father was stressed. But one morning he started yelling to me, and I was shocked. So I taken my backpack and I went to school. And in the afternoon, I didn't came back home, but I stopped with a friend of mine. My parents were very worried about that, because I hadn't informed them about my choice. So later on, we excuse one each other. Then I remember that also Yogananda made the same thing when he was young, but probably he was a little different. Anyway, if we think as he, Yogananda, because the reading is talking about understanding, and the understanding, especially in youth, is quite confused but by God's grace, the saving grace of God, I could overcome my confusion, my restlessness. Yogananda, our guru, went away from home, but his purpose was different. So let's have a look of the motivation behind him. He had a vision when he was 8, a vision of the divine light, a vision of Ishvara, and you can find it on the autobiography. He had that vision. And from that vision, he realized that he built a strong motivation that there is no greater joy than God. And think how strange is the opposition of your spiritual family and your birth family, your relatives, your parents. If you take a look to Yogananda's family, it's perfect. His father was a direct disciple of Lahiri Mahashaya and her mothers too. So, what's best? So there's nothing to do. But he felt that there is more. Yogananda's dream was to move to the Himalayas and meditate in a cave, focusing on the light he could see in his vision. So he fighted his parents, even though he respected them, and also he respected his older brother. In the autobiography there are many beautiful stories how he did deal with his family, even though he had little trouble with his sisters. But that's only the surface. But underneath the surface there was a full acceptance of what the parents were. He lost his mother, as we know, and that was a very dramatic part of his childhood. So, when he was 18, when he achieved the degree, he said to his father, I cannot tell you how grateful I am because of you, but please let me go, and I will spend the rest of my life just seeking for divine love. For there was no position in his mind between spiritual, family, and worldly family. He was looking for a guru. He was not rejecting his family. He fully accepted them. But when that acceptance was flicking, he met Sri Yukteswar. And Sri Yukteswar said, go back to your parents. And Yogananda said, oh no. So he was both human and divine. He went away with a noble purpose, and he thought, Sri Yukteswar said a very interesting thing. Why you should put your parents a part of your love. And that's the same for us as devotees. We are building, we are creating a spiritual family. And this family have to include should include our biological family. Even though I cannot tell to my children, come to Ananda and learn Kriya Yoga, they would laugh at me. But me, as a disciple, I have to accept the karma of my children, the karma of my parents, as they are. But at the same time, this biology, this biological family is within our body cell. Swami himself said he was at a party once. He has one glass in one hand and was not straight, and he came into his mind the memory that his father did the same. So, but the main path is to work on your calm acceptance. A calm and acceptance with calmness is fundamental. Every meditation should start with such a feeling. You should calm down what is in your subconscious mind, your parents, your children, your parents, your spiritual family. The truth is that when we start creating a spiritual family, we meet lots of people, and our challenge, many things from our past are still with us, and our childhood is an inspiration. If you want to have a better understanding of a friend, wait for that magical moment, maybe in front of a fireplace, and talk about his childhood, and you will know him even better. Master said, parents has been given because of our karma, but the friends are given by God. So, what you receive from your parents, there is a tendency in the children to trust his parents, and part of the spiritual path is to find once more the same feeling of trust, the same innocence. So let's think. How should it be a happy childhood or an unhappy childhood? And it's important to remember what Swami and Master said. What is good karma? Good karma is just something that will teach you how the universal laws functions and provide you the many opportunities in order to overcome your problem, your limits, and so on. So, now let's have a look of the psychology of a child that had a very bad childhood. Okay, maybe the parents were divorced, one of them was an alcoholic, he was bullied, and so on. And such a person joined a spiritual group or joined a spiritual community. If this is good or bad karma, is not according of his childhood, but is according to the part within him or her that has that knows that we have to control our reactions. We shouldn't project on others everything that happens. If you really understand this law, even though you had the most awful childhood you can imagine, everything will turn into good karma. A very little fundamental and important thing that is you cannot blame your spiritual family, you cannot blame yourself, even yourself. That was just a little karma. A little karma you had to live. And your spiritual family is the opportunity to overcome your karma. Because if you observe your reaction, just observing them is a great opportunity. And then the opposite, a wonderful childhood, parents who are in love, perfect siblings, beautiful house, no financial problem, and that person join a spiritual group or a spiritual community. Is it a good karma? It depends. Can be that Mario or Maria will meet Enrico or Enrica, and maybe that new friend is bringing vibration of no harmony, disharmonic feelings. And we say, put him out of the group. But good karma is understanding that the privilege of a good and happy childhood is not just that you have to keep on working on your karma. You have to keep on working on the openness of of your heart and opening your soul to God and let Him transform the clay into gold. So, even though you had a perfect childhood or the worst childhood had, it is not important. There is a neutral point, and that neutral space is your spiritual family, because they will mirror you. And it is your motivation to overcome your limits, to not judging, not criticizing, to practice self-control, to purify yourself, and chiefly to relax. To relax not only during your meditation, but being patient at any time, to have fun with them. If this is clear, no matter where you came from, but your ultimate karma is this: to use your spiritual family in order to grow together with them. There's nothing best on earth, because the spiritual family can really support your authenticity, your individuality. In Education for Life, Swami Vivekananda said that the only purpose of teaching is supporting the maturity. Maturity is the ability to relate with a reality that is different than yours. So what best of a spiritual family with many different people from different classes, different parts of Italy, in different countries here at Ananda. In our community, we came from many different countries, the Netherlands, Spain, Croatia, Italy, United Kingdom, US. So that's a great opportunity. If this is your motivation, I would like to relate with someone different, and so I stay quiet and I just listen. I pause myself, pause before reacting, pause, push the pause button, then play, then push the play button, but change the record, okay, with spiritual music. So, and then Kriyananda tells us the tools of education for life: body, emotions, feelings, willpower, will and intellect. And intellect is the last of the list, because understanding follows our feeling. The most dramatic example is when in Germany during the Nazis, Germany, that is the place of great philosophers, great musicians, of immortal music, a very great civilization. But they had a karma for 12 years during which Hitler. And that time, the teachers of many colleges, they started to teach the theory of the races that has no value, doesn't worth at all. That will show us how the intellect can make a mess when it's not anchored with the soul. So in order to have a free understanding, a clear understanding, the tool is practicing devotion. Devotion is love, but love with another ingredient, the ingredient of willpower and concentration. If you trust only your heart, you can fall in love one day, and the day after you see different things in your partner. Or you become upset because we are human. That's the human drama, no? But if you had to your love the willpower and the concentration, and you focus your heart feelings in the point between the eyebrows, and I know that Maria Rudra talked about it, you can stabilize your feelings. Your feelings will become steady. And when you have a steady heart, you will know what is behind your feelings. And Master and God can easily look at them. But when you practice the calmness and the concentration, your ability to love will multiply in an amazing way. In Italy, when you talk about impersonal love, is quite challenging because Italians are very warm in their heart. So impersonal is quite challenging. No? But again, going back to the ideal of a spiritual family, if you have learned how to love everyone, how to accept everyone, from then on, you should learn how to love everyone, not only the ones you love. Because even in a community, there is a karma between people, no? Jyotish told me that even among advanced spiritual people living in a community, there is a strong karma. And we have to work it out. So in personal love, as Yuma told me once, I said, I'm quite tired because I had I counseled many people today, but I must say that the person before me was the most important person of my life. When you dedicate your time to someone else, when you listen to someone else, in that moment, it's not necessary to think about your own problems. Stay with the person that is before you. In that moment, that person is the most important person ever. And you can do that only if you can detach. Detachments will bring you freedom. And then the next person again will be the most important people. That's very profound. This will give you a lot of strength and maturity. Masters had but first I would like to share a story about the conflict we might have among devotees. I heard Swamiji once said that also disciples can have a dislike. For instance, Uma, in the autobiography of a yogi, was led by Swami Shutex, where he could see her light, but only him, only Swami Shutex could see the light in Uma. So he put him in charge of the ashram, but all the people had problems with Uma. And so Uma got angry and he went to Sri Yukteswar and Yogananda take the position of Uma. So Uma left the ashram. Sri Yukteswar wept for a while and said the world have to be his guru. The cold world has to be his guru once more. And what was the reaction of Yogananda, the favorite of Master? I wasn't happy with him. I was unhappy with him. But he said, my nature is never affected by details. What is details? Maybe a person is wearing pants that you don't like, trousers that you don't like. But the more your consciousness and your heart are wide, the more such a detail is a little fish jumping in the ocean. But the more your consciousness is tighter, the more his trousers can ruin your day. So it's according to the vastity of your consciousness. Swami Asha shares lots of story on his YouTube channel, and one she told about a story about her and another devotees. They couldn't get along, but they were forced to cooperate because it was at the very beginning of Ananda. So can you imagine how this conflict, this fight could be important? And Swami Kriyananda was the leader at that moment. So they worked together, they prayed, they prayed in order to overcome the problem. So, and they try to work over and over again, and they ask counseling at Swamiji's, but they both had a dream and they dreamt that in a previous life Asha's friends were a princess and Asha's stolen the partner to her, and in a following reincarnation they were both famous singers. But Asha put poisoned her so she could become the only singer. So they both went to Swami, sharing with him the same dream. And Swami said, "Okay, yes, I can tell you that's a super conscious dream, but always remember that this dream is related to the past, and now you have the opportunity to stay here together practicing Kriya Yoga and not bother others." And so, through the understanding, the karma starts to dissolve. But once there was a Kriya initiation, during the Kriya initiation, as you probably know, we all were in white. So there was that beautiful initiation, and after the initiation there was a party. So Asha was drinking a cup of coffee, and her friends and her friends was talking to her, and Asha splashed the white robes of the others with coffee, but the reaction was that they both started to laugh, and that was the end of the story. So, I say this only to suggest you that it's possible. If you have such a karma with a strong like or dislike, with your strong reaction, know remind that you have the opportunity to overcome such a lesson if you work hard.
Un'altra cosa da e anche le comunità sono piccole, ricordatevi che anche se
Remember,
come ha detto Anand,
even though Swami Kriyananda said that in 100 years, what we are doing now will be watched as a very important thing. Great changes start from a very tiny group, one or two people they put together, and then the politicians come for last. When the society has changed, they jump on the chariot of the winner. And they agree with you, no? The idea of a brotherhood colonies is a good idea. But we're still young and little. If you watch the videos of our ministers, the visualizations of our videos is very little, probably 1,000. And then you watch a video of Donald Trump, and that video received millions of visualization. Yes, we are little, we are tiny, but we are brave because we are aware of the flame within. Jesus started with 12 disciples, and one of them betrayed him, but Jesus could change the world. So, in order to end about the 8 divine qualities, the most important one is calmness. It might seem strange because you would say love maybe or joy, but for our daily practice, calmness is the most important, because calmness manifests and supports all the remaining qualities. If you want to achieve to the deeper levels of yourself, you have to develop calmness. So, thinking about the devotion for the Divine Mother that we can cultivate, and the best way to achieve maturity is, yes, to meditate, in which you can feel the presence of the Divine Mother that is shining within you, and you can feel her strength. But then, when you go to work, or when you prepare your breakfast, or when you join your meditation group, you should try to put into action what you have gained during the meditation. Otherwise, you stay calm in the temple, but out the temple you become mad, and maybe your partner can tell you, why don't you stay in the temple all the time? And so, devotion and calmness. I'd like to end with the whispers of eternity. It's number 167, and I read both in English and Italian.
O Spirit, as no work is possible without borrowing from Thee the power to perform it, so teach us to consider no work greater than Thy spiritual work. Teach us to feel that since no duty is possible without Thee, so no duty is more important than our duty to Thee. And teach us to love Thee above everything, For we cannot live or love anything or anybody without thy life, thy love. Grazie.
Segui il tuo sogno verso la libertà, anche se porta a mondi ignoti. Una volta che la strada è conosciuta, non ti serve l'approvazione di nessuno. Vai avanti anche da solo. La tua anima conosce la via, cerca la libertà e non indugiare. E se nessuno ti segue, vai avanti da solo.